Welcome, welcome very, very much to Conversations. Pleasure to welcome to the program Carl Pearson, a dear friend of mine and of the world's. He's had a very interesting legal career, and he's currently in the running as a candidate for the President of the United States on the Libertarian Party. We're going to want a slate, and we're going to want to talk about that. But Carl, it's been far too long. It's so good to see you again.
It's a pleasure truly to be back, and I've had so many people tell me that they've watched one or more of our prior interviews. They think they're great. They're long, they're in-depth, and they really like them. And
You're too young to remember Betty Furness, I suppose.
Not at all. Let me tell you about her.
Well, tell me about her.
I took her deposition.
No kidding.
Yeah.
You got to.
Yes, I did.
You're
I did.
Just putting me
No,
on.
let me tell. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Let me tell you what happened. It's a very interesting story, and that is that Betty Furness, who used to be Miss Rheingold, and then became the Miss America.
Right.
And then became the head of the Department of Consumer Affairs because she married a Midgley, a guy named Midgley, as I recall, who was with CBS. That was all these connections. She started issuing press releases and bringing suit against small people. One was a butcher who would put his thumb on the scale. And another one was a bully bill collector in the Bronx who, working out of his home, would call up people and say, "You better pay me, otherwise I'm going to cause trouble for you." So I noticed that everyone that she issued a press release and went after was a very small business person who was inconsequential, really, in the overall scheme of things. So I sent a telegram out to all of these people, said that I think I have a solution for your problem. So we met, and I brought a lawsuit on behalf of all of them against Betty Furness.
Did you prevail?
And then, well, let me tell you what happened. I took her deposition, and I said, "Ms. Furness, why is it that every time you issue a press release, it's only against a small business?" And she said, "You don't really want to know." I said, "I'm asking you, please let me know." "Yes, I would like to know." She said, "Because New York City does not give me enough to go after the big companies, and if I had enough, I would go after them, but since I don't, I do what I can do."
Okay,
that was what she said.
Good story. I'm happy to hear that, but I had a different take on it, because I remember from black and white television coming out on the stage with a refrigerator and closing the door with she had a flouncy skirt and a perky smile. She was right in the camera, and she said, "If it's Westinghouse, it's got to be good. If it's Pearson, it's got to be good." Okay, so that's the point. Anyway, share real quickly your background, because it's illuminating about how you got into law school and all that. Real quickly, and then we want to get down to the nuts and bolts of your campaign.
I have been a small business person since age 9. When I had my first business was as a paper route, delivery boy, newspaper, and if I didn't get paid, I didn't make any money because I had to pay for the newspapers and I had to recover it from the people. That put me in business, but I didn't know it at the time. So from age 9 on, I've been a small business person. And I feel for small business. Small business is what we have to do. So I don't feel for high school. I never really enjoyed high school. So at age 15, I left high school.
Dropped out?
I dropped out.
You're a high school dropout?
Yeah, I'm a high school dropout.
No hope?
Well,
hope springs eternal.
Anytime I could, I would run the cameras. I would run the projector. I would go to the bathroom. I'd do anything to get out of the room. So my French teacher one day told me in the second year of high school that she's going to flunk me unless I promise never to take another French class. So I told her, "You give me exactly what I deserve." And she flunked me. So I flunked that. So I didn't care. I left. And I had a whole series of jobs. My first job was 25 cents an hour running knitting mills on Comac, Larkfield Road and Route 25. And I had, well, it's in Long Island, and I finally didn't really do it well enough, so I left that job. Then I was making ammunition boxes for the Korean War, and I wore out my thumb because you had to press a piping into the ammunition box, and it just wore out your fingers. So but interestingly enough there, I was really diligent, and I was running a drill press and doing it very quickly, and the shop steward came over to me. He sidled over to me and he said, "You know, you're making us all look bad." So I said, "Oh, I didn't realize that."
Calm
So I
down,
slowed down, and they all liked me after that. So and I did other things. I finally didn't know what to do, so I joined the Army. I was a ship-to-shore radio operator, and I said, and I was in for 3 years, in Okinawa for 2 years, and then I wanted to get out of the Army early. So I asked
post-Korea.
And before it was after, right after the Panmunjom Treaty had already been signed when I joined the Army. So I was not in wartime. I was not in wartime.
Yeah, me too. I was the same ballpark.
Yeah. So
I was drafted though.
Well, I joined for 3, and I didn't realize I could have joined for 2. I made a bad mistake. I didn't realize it.
You get 1 or 2 mistakes.
Well, you know, that was a bad one. So when I found out that I said, let me get out of this Army if I can. So I found out.
I know that sentiment very well.
So I had there was a program of early release from the Army if you could find a college willing to take you, but I'm a high school dropout.
Yeah, right.
I don't even have a GED.
Right, right.
So my father, who was a Harvard Law School graduate, and my uncle, who was the administrator, the head of an academy, a very famous academy, a high school.
Which one?
Up in Wilton or in New Hampshire, a very famous one. So he was the headmaster. Everyone knew him.
Right.
Both of them tried to find a college willing to take me, and they couldn't find one. And then Columbia finally said they would be willing to take me in general studies, but no degree. I'd be willing to pay them and sit in the class, but I could not get a degree. So finally they found one school in Brooklyn, Long Island University. They took me, thank God they took me, and a week later I wound up working for the admissions director personally, and I made plenty of money working for him. I was on student loans, or I had a big bank account when I got out of school. I worked awfully hard, and I was offered a job by William Zeckendorf to be his personal assistant. He was the biggest real estate guy in the world.
Wow.
And he offered me a job in his Oval Office that emulated the President's Oval Office. And I had to turn it down. But if I had taken the job, I could well have been the Madoff of real estate. I could have been the Madoff of real estate.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you didn't go that way.
But I really missed something. But I wanted to go to law school.
Yeah, you did want to go to why? Yeah. Following your dad's footsteps,
well, yes and no. You know what I knew?
To fight the good fight for justice,
you know, no, not at all. This goes back years ago. I recognize that when you're in college, you really don't have an education that teaches you something that you can then offer as a skill to be hired. Well, we didn't have technology then. We didn't have technology. So all we had was political science and history and social studies or other courses like that. And unless you're taking business, if you're a business major or accounting, you could get a job in business. But if you're just a liberal arts student, well, what do you have to offer? But all of us knew that what you had to offer was that you could go to medical school or law school.
That's right. And also and there was nowhere to go when I was in school, university and all that. There was no thought about business. I mean, there was something over there, but now it's just everywhere.
Now it's everything. Yeah.
Everybody's concentrated on making a buck.
When I went to college, business school was you looked down on business school majors. You looked down. They were not liberal arts. You looked down on them. They were merely grinding away, doing this business thing.
There's a change in the zeitgeist or something, isn't there?
Yeah. So there's been a total change. Anyway, I graduated 3rd in my class from LIU. I went to Harvard Law School, and I worked awfully hard in Harvard Law School.
Josh wants to convey something. Microphone.
Yeah, raise your mic.
Okay, right. Okay, thanks. Okay. Go ahead, I'll get it. Go ahead, keep going. Thank you. That's okay. Keep going,
Okay,
Carl.
so
it fell off.
I went to law school. I worked awfully hard, and I actually went up to law school in advance, a month in advance, and I bought every textbook, and I read through about 1/3 of each of the textbooks. So the first day of class, the teacher asked questions of the students, and the students inevitably did not know. But I would always hold back and wait until everyone had a chance to answer, and nobody did it correctly. Then I would say, I have the answer, I think. And I would give the answer because I had read the textbook.
Yeah.
And people came up to the professor at the end of the class and said, you know, my God, this is Harvard, I understand it, but how does this guy know all that stuff? So one guy came to me and he said that he is going home. He can't take the pressure anymore. And I said, look, don't be influenced by what I did here. This is just a show. I realize that. And the professor told him that it will dissipate and I will have no advantage whatsoever in about 3 or 4 weeks. And he was right. He was absolutely right. And the guy, in fact, did not quit, but he was going to go home to his mother. He couldn't take the pressure. A guy from Georgetown University, a really nice guy. Tony was his name.
You've always been an entrepreneur. Yes, right. Entrepreneurial spirit. That's
so anyway, I got a job on Wall Street.
You got a degree at Harvard.
I got a law degree.
Enjoyed it then? Did you enjoy the study of the law?
No, you don't enjoy the study. It's awfully hard, very difficult. And people accuse me of having a tape with a typewriter, because we had typewriters back then, not computers.
I remember.
Of having the typewriter tape running all night long because. And I let them think that that's what I did, but in fact I was working. I didn't have a tape, and they thought that I was trying to scare them. I wasn't. I was working all night long. The one in my class who did not work that hard was number 1, and he's a Court of Appeals judge right now, very famous, Richard Posner, Dick Posner, Richard Posner. Richard Posner. Posner, I call him. So he on the day that we were taking the exams, sandy-haired guy, very tall and lean. I said to him, "Aren't you going to study?" And he says, "I don't have to." And he came in number 1. Unbelievable. I did not come in number 1, and I studied all the time.
Right.
So I worked awfully hard. I still work awfully hard. I work till 3, 4, or 5 o'clock.
I know, you work harder than anybody I know. Is there a certain mindset that favors the law as a discipline and so forth? Or
well, I'll tell you what the discipline is.
What is it?
I'll tell you what it is. We have a way of thinking which is inculcated in us in the first year of law school. You don't need a second or third year of law school. It's just information. No. The first year of contracts, of torts, of criminal law, you get the thinking that makes you think like a lawyer. And we listen to words, and we think of whether the words really mean what you think they do, because you may not know the meaning and you may be misarticulating what you're thinking about. But we also have another skill, and that is that we know when we know, and we know when we don't know. But you don't know that as a layman.
That's cultivated in the law.
Well, not necessarily. They may tell us that, but we perceive that because we know from our learning what there is to know out there, and if we haven't heard it, then it probably doesn't exist from a legal standpoint. We know doctrines. We study cases and doctrines and different relationships, and when we have a set of tools, we have maybe 500, 1,000, 2,000 or 3,000 tools that we work with, legal concepts. The legal concept might be a phrase, summary judgment motion. Now, I can play with the words summary judgment motion, but I can also give you a lecture in 2 hours of what it means. So that phrase allows me to think 2 hours worth of thoughts that I have. I can juggle that phrase around without having to articulate it. I have a phrase. So I have thousands of phrases in my mind that are legal relationships that I can deal with. I can be inventive with my concepts because they're given names.
Couple things on the law, if I could. One is there's an adversarial thing that's assumed within the law rather than some reconciliation or something in terms of the way to approach the world. Another one is, I think I saw a figure, I don't know the exact, but it was something like 60 or 70% of our federal politicians are lawyers. Do you think the law is a good training for people who are going to be in a position of governmental responsibility or not? Well,
it goes 2 ways.
It seems to be that's where they gravitate.
Well, it goes 2 ways. If with legal thinking, you can probably be better in framing a solution. But as a lawyer, you may be like George Bush Sr., and he wasn't a lawyer, but you might be similar to him where he's way beyond the average person. He never even ever went into Walmarts until one time when people accused
he didn't know what is this thing called a cash register.
So a lawyer can be further removed from the people because only 1 out of maybe 1,000 persons is a lawyer in the country.
I don't know what the figure
Well,
is.
there used to be a million lawyers, so it's maybe 1 out of 300,000 now instead of 1 out of 3,000 instead of 1 out of 1,000. But it's some number similar to that. There's more than 1 million lawyers in the country, but there's 300 million.
The political process.
Well, the reason for that is that a lawyer earns more money generally than a person who is
taxi driver.
Well, a taxi driver. Yeah. A taxi driver earns about $7 or $8 an hour. They work about 12 hours a day, 5 or 6 days a week. That's their revenue. It's not that much. It's hard to earn a living.
Yes.
A Greyhound bus driver might earn only $7 or $8, $9 an hour, and they don't make very much. So a lot of people, well, airline pilots, a guy called me up the other day, and he used to make $120,000 a year until 9/11. 9/11 changed the airline industry so dramatically that they only earn now $32,000 a year is what he's earning from 120,000.
Wow!
And he can't pay his student loans, and he wants me to do something about it.
Okay, yeah.
You know how to handle a student loan?
No, I do not.
I'll tell you what to do.
I didn't have any loans. I had the GI Bill.
Here, I had the GI Bill too. Remember the 5220 Club?
5220. I can't.
When you got out of the Army, they gave you $20 a week for 52 weeks to try to rehabilitate yourself and get a job. It was only $20 a week.
I guess they did it. I don't remember.
The 5220 Club.
They had the GI Bill.
Yeah, that was in addition to that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I didn't remember. Yeah.
So the way of dealing with student loans is this. The biggest problem we have in the country has never been articulated by anyone that understands the problem. But I know the problem intimately because I was there and I have experienced it. The problem that we have in America is that the higher educational system continues to teach something which is no longer relevant to getting a job. At one time, we didn't have technology, so we were then saying that a person like yourself that's very bright and is very learned, that somebody like that would make a good employee because they can handle issues and things like that. But now, if you ask a small business person like myself, and there are 26 million people, 26 million small businesses.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That's
20 million have no employees. 6 million have 1 or more employees, but there are 26 million small businesses.
Wow, that's a big figure.
Yeah, 20 million do not have an employee.
Okay.
No employee with 20 million people.
Okay.
Because of the withholding tax, the compliance with the withholding tax. So in my campaign for president, I have this slogan, and I've had it for years, and I've been trying to get the government to adopt it. The first 3 are free.
The first 3 are free.
I want the first 3 employees of any business, whether it's General Motors or a small newspaper route or anyone, to be free of all regulations so that they can hire up to 3 people and be deemed independent contractors, and let them deal directly with the government and pay the taxes directly instead of involving me. That would be like a head start for small business, that we could hire up to 3 people legally.
Is that onerous for the person who's trying to have a
for any business, even General Motors?
Really?
Any business. Let the first 3 be free with any business. Why?
Free of taxes?
No. They pay their own taxes directly.
Yeah.
Why bother me? Why should I have to pay the taxes for somebody?
I don't know. Do you have to pay the taxes?
Well, you do if you hire somebody. Of course you do. That's why we don't hire. We have to pay withholding taxes. We have to get an insurance policy.
Isn't that on their salary?
No, we have to get an insurance policy of disability income. We have to get a workman's compensation insurance policy. We have to get paychecks or ADP. We have to go online with those. We have to get those people to service us. And then if we miss a payroll because we ran out of money, they cancel everything out. They terminate your insurance. They short rate you. You can't hire anyone. You're all messed up. So small business people say, enough. I'm never going to hire again. Never, ever, ever am I going to hire again.
Wow, I didn't know
that's
that.
The problem.
I've never had a business.
Well, that's why the people who run the country, like Romney is going to run the country, they never had a business like this.
You think Romney's going to run the country?
Well, he's going to win.
You think he's going to win, right?
Well, he's going to be nominated, and I don't think Obama can win.
You don't think so? Okay, well, that's an interesting
So Romney is probably going to be the victor here. I mean, look, I'm going to be the 3rd candidate.
Okay.
I'm going to be opposing Romney and Obama.
Okay.
I hope to get the nomination of the Libertarian Party. There's 5 of us seeking it. I'm truly the most qualified.
Okay.
Absolutely,
no, I know you're
the most
very qualified. I know that.
Absolutely. It doesn't mean I'm going to get it, but I'm the most qualified. I have plans that we can create millions of jobs. What does the public want? I can create millions of jobs without a payment of 1 penny by the government. Why isn't the government doing that? The way of creating millions of jobs without the government paying a single penny is the first 3 are free.
First tree of any of this annoying interference.
If you allow small business to hire up to 3 people without requiring you to withhold, to make reports.
I don't understand that. They have to withhold income that you would have otherwise paid to them.
Yes.
Well, that's taken out of their salary, and then that's the thing of withholding
Well, that's
tax.
what everyone does.
Yeah.
General Motors does it for 500,000 people if they have that many.
And
then if you're a small business, you have to take those regulations that are the size of this room and apply it to your one person you just hired.
Is that onerous?
Onerous, we don't do it. 20 million people don't do it.
I know, I've heard you say that. I didn't know that it was.
20 million people
Why does
don't
it have
do
to
it?
be so onerous?
Because that way we don't hire, and that way small...
I know, you're talking about the result. I'm saying, why does it have to be so complicated?
Because the people that do that don't want small business to compete with them. Don't you understand that the rules and regulations are designed to suppress the competition? And it's been very effective. It's
there are anti-monopoly features that want to have new endeavors and new entrepreneurial.
Don't
but you
believe
say
it.
That's undercut by the people who run the show.
Right. The people that run the show are not looking to have us compete with them.
Really?
So they set up licensing and rules and regulations that make it difficult to compete.
Is that a general critique of the public sector?
Anyone,
is there a role for the public sector at all in an economy, or what?
Let's say this, that when you have people that have grabbed control of the political process, do you think they're going to give you anything? They're going to take it for themselves. You've seen them do it.
Yeah.
Why would you think it's anything but what they're doing?
Right. Okay.
They're going to continue to do it. The concentration of the economy is continually getting worse.
Yes, it is indeed.
Well, that's what's happening here.
Has it always been? You're a widely read person, so hasn't it always been throughout all of what we call human history? We don't know before, Neolithic Revolution or something, but it's always been a few people who run everything, whether they're emperors in Rome or the kings in England, or
isn't it true that every civilization? Isn't it true that every civilization fails at some point?
Well, every civilization has a birth and then fails. And one alarming research thing I just found out is that being a comprehensive thinker about things and everything, interested in virtually everything as I am, which is you're really open to the charge of jack of all trades, master of none when you're interested in, say, everything. And you should have a department at the University of everything because it's all specialized and everything. But 99.9% of all the species that have ever existed have gone extinct.
Yeah.
Okay? So but hasn't it always been that you've got a group who runs things, the emperors or whatever, and so why wouldn't there be people who are running things now? Is there anything changed that we can have a just system where everybody can be motivated by their own interests and what they want to do, rather than be peons or serfs on a feudal estate?
We have the rich taking office.
Right.
Now, I ran for attorney. But let me explain what happened here. I ran for attorney general last year. Do you remember that? I was on the ballot.
Yeah,
I was actually on the ballot.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And do you know how I came in?
That guy won, Schneiderman.
But and Donovan came in number 2. Do you know where I came in?
I don't.
Number 3.
Okay.
And you know what my cost per vote was?
No, I don't.
I paid 3 cents per vote.
How much did they pay?
Now, Mayor Bloomberg got reelected, and you know what he paid per vote?
I have no idea.
A nickel, a dime. He paid $174 per vote.
That's because he's got all that
because
money.
He had $100 million. He spent $100 million.
Well, they have Citizens United and everything in the Supreme Court. Your judiciary.
Well, that's true.
Extension of the law
They can do anything they want now.
They can put all that money in, and money talks. So, are you surprised that money talks?
No, but I have a solution for that.
You don't think money should talk?
Well, I have a solution for it.
Okay.
Money does talk, but it's a viral solution. You've heard about viral because
viral
some things you went viral on internet with one of your interviews.
One of them went to millions.
It went real viral. I heard about that. I couldn't believe it, but everyone was looking up your video. It went viral with millions of hits.
Yeah.
I can create a viral condition in a small town.
That was produced in this studio in
Right.
this very situation.
I can create a viral condition in a town of 10,000 people.
Okay, with your Attorney General idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I like your idea of having
here's how to
somebody
do it.
there representing the people in the name of the Attorney General.
Here's how to do it now.
Yeah.
I will take a team of 10 people who are unemployed and train them to go in and knock on every door in a town of 10,000 people. That's only 3,500 doors. And the first thing they do is take the email address of everyone in town.
Right.
What happens if you have the email address of everyone in town? What do you own then?
Well, you got a database for one thing and a way of communicating with people.
You own the local newspaper now.
It is, yeah. Actually, you can put anything
at no
on
cost.
there.
You can now get it out at no cost.
Yeah, okay.
So now you're not worried about what the newspaper says. You are viral with everyone in town getting your message anytime you want. But don't abuse it.
As long as they don't...
don't abuse it.
Yeah, don't abuse it. Yeah, right. Okay,
but also...
Yeah. It's amazing, yeah.
But a person could do this either for good or for evil. So what happens if an evil person gets the same idea and he does the same thing?
The name Murdoch comes to mind.
Okay, what happens if you have good in a newspaper telling people the right things, the things that will be helpful, and you have an evil person sending out an email giving the wrong information and misleading them and false and lying to them?
Oh, you tell me what happened. What?
Truth should prevail,
Truth,
because you have an
truth.
opportunity of giving the truth, and you have everyone in town, and smart people will understand the truth and be able to deal with it. So
yeah,
you can take the liars that in the nation now. The liars are the ones who basically are in the headlines.
Yeah.
The successful political people are the liars.
They can
and
buy
their
access,
press does anything they want at $174 per vote. But you can go into town and create total knowledge in the town, enough to do the right thing in the town. If the mayor doesn't do what you want, then you send an email out to everyone in town and say, hey, call that mayor up and tell him he's a jerk. So you can have everyone in town calling the mayor, and the mayor will quickly get the message. So you can have a real participating democracy in a small town. And you can have four things that I need to bring into the town. And it's not done by the government, by the way. It's done by people against the government. Let's call it that way. It's a way of doing something where government has failed to do them anything. Because they're relying on government. Government isn't doing anything. You got to do it yourself.
Yeah, and you're putting your truth.
Right.
You say the truth. That's a different thing than
it's
that's your truth.
It's competing truth.
Okay, all right. Okay,
so number one, I want the mayor to tell the town's attorney to start enforcing the rights of the homeowners and others, so we don't lose any more rights at government expense. I want them to enforce the rights of people, so that the banks don't steal any more property. They don't cause the town to be in decline by putting all these homes into fraudulent foreclosure. Why isn't the town stopping that?
Do they have the authority to? You should have an attorney general in the town representing the interests of the people rather than the special
It's just the local
interest.
attorney. You only need the local attorney enforcing the rights of people instead of trying to put them in jail.
Yeah, but the attorney general's an office. Isn't it a governmental office, an official office that has certain powers?
It is, but you can decentralize it by having a lawyer working for the town, enforcing the same rights for the townspeople that the Attorney General enforces for the state.
Would they be subalterns to the Attorney General?
It doesn't matter.
The Attorney General is part of the political process writ large.
And bought off to a great extent.
Well, okay, everybody's bought off.
Everyone's bought off.
How cynical can we be?
Well, it's very easy
to be
If you bring it down to the local level, you can have 40,000 people you have to buy off. But if you keep the Attorney General at the top, you only buy off 50 people. It's better for us if we have 40,000 to buy off.
You're for decentralization,
yes,
power,
absolutely,
and authority, and freedom.
absolutely. That's competition.
Yeah,
I'm for competition
from the
people.
So
number one, you want the town's attorney to start enforcing the rights before we lose any more. Number two.
That's good.
Number two.
Yeah.
I want to have a tuition-free equivalency college for residents only, which the people can create. And it only costs $2,000 a year for tuition to teach people what they need to know.
I have a friend of mine, George Stoney, who's the godfather of public access.
Yeah.
You know George. He's in his 90s. He's
Yeah.
still alert and everything.
Yeah, I saw him the
And
other
he's
day.
got a real bad problem with the students coming in. He's New York.
Right.
He's retired now, emeritus. But they would come in, and the students, it's just getting worse and worse. They come into the classroom, and what they say, you're at New York University, as it happens, it could be anywhere, Harvard, you know. They come into the classroom and they say, what do I have to do to be an A? What do I have to do? It's all outer-directed. And what it is I need that, and the reason they're there is not for anything about learning or anything.
Of course,
it's about how can I get some money by getting a degree that's going to make me get some money. Okay?
Now here's
so your education, so what they have is certification that you're learning, that you've been you've learned something, and the reason to learn something, get a degree, is so you can get a job to make money.
Okay, now the problem that has developed for colleges and universities
certification is the issue.
The problem of having a degree now, as distinguished from 20 years ago, is that employers no longer need somebody with a degree. They need somebody who knows how to do technical things.
Hasn't that always been the case?
No. We never had we didn't have technical stuff before.
We have certification for lawyers. You have a bar exam you pass.
That
you have
was
medical.
not always
you have
that
to,
way.
No.
But I'm talking about rank and file people that graduate from college, not from law school, not from veterinarian school, just rank and file people from college. They are taught the same things that the schools were teaching 20 or 30 years ago. But they're not learning about search engine optimization. They're not learning how to upload videos. They're not learning how to do blog marketing. They're not learning how to do PowerPoint presentations.
Yeah, it's coming.
They're not doing anything. I have to do it. I don't have the time to do it. I need somebody to do this for me.
You're talking personally
now.
Yeah, or anybody.
20 million of us need people to do it for us. And there's no school teaching it.
There's no school teaching.
Because the state licensing won't allow schools to be created. Because they would compete with the colleges.
Right. Okay. Yeah, they got a closed
That's
market.
it. That's the problem.
It's a closed market.
So that we have licensed ourselves.
Do they teach people how to do computers and stuff and everything?
Not in college.
Not in college. They don't do that.
Well,
they don't do it. I don't know. It's been so long since I've been in college.
It'd be. I mean, everyone knows how to run a computer, but
not everyone. I went to some friends of mine. They were downtown. I went to some friends of mine. They're really clever skit comedy writers, and they had their kid there with them. It was a crazy hair day. And he had his hair, if you put gelatin in it, it'll stand up like a stegosaur. He ambled over to that computer that was very sophisticated. He was playing it like, what do you call it? Horowitz plays the piano. He knew how to make it all work. Let me
tell you what I did about...
You can get any 7-year-old, they can do that stuff.
20 years ago.
And that's encouraging and also chagrining to us
20 years ago, I issued a press release, and WOR-TV had me on the air. I said, I am willing to take people off of welfare at my own expense, but I just want a percentage of the money that I saved New York City. So the head of welfare called me up and said, I like your idea.
Right.
I want you to submit a proposal to train people, and these people I want you to train are addicted people who are on welfare. So I said, okay.
Addicted to drugs?
Yeah. So I said, okay, let me try it. So I created a program that consisted of everything I know and everything I would like to know. Things that I want people to do that I don't want to do myself. They need technical skills. So I put all those different things in that I wanted people to know. I said, this is the curriculum that I want you to teach.
You're so smart. You put up a website like I write a letter home to mother. You put, how many websites you put? You do it over in half an hour. You're really skilled at that. You picked it up. But go ahead. I didn't mean to interfere.
So New York City wanted me to train people to take them off of welfare. The training program that I devised was a macro paraprofessional field.
Right.
Now, a micro field, like a legal assistant, which I created.
You created a school. It's very long running.
Paralegals. A micro field is a thin sliver of the economy.
Right.
Legal. Veterinarian assistant would be a thin sliver.
Right.
A medical assistant, a nurse's assistant, a teacher's assistant. These are all micro. They're all micro. They're all micro.
Right. Okay.
I created a macro paraprofessional
which is like
field.
Information technology.
Or information. Yes, and the title of the career field I've named as being the assistant to the owner of a small business.
Okay, which you're not going to have all kinds of onerous taxes for the first 3 of which.
Well, and then you
what's going to happen when the first 4 walks?
Well, then,
but anyway,
look, when I named this the first 3 are free.
This is part of your campaign.
When I named it as the first 3 are free, I would have said
first 3 are free is a nice tune.
If it had rhymed with 3, I would have said the first 27 are free.
You could have said the first 33. That's the age of
the
Christ.
first 3
First 33.
333, 999.
Yeah, right. That kind
what
of
a
stuff.
bunch of crap that 999 is. What a bunch of nonsense. Total nonsense.
Yeah. It's going, but it gets associated with that.
So if here is what we have now throughout the country. We have colleges that don't train people for jobs that are not there because there's no one ready to fill the jobs.
Well, I have exception with that. I think there's
I know you're saying that there aren't going to be any jobs in the long run.
Not any. There will be jobs, but the ability to distribute demand to the mass of the people through jobs is out of date with what the zeitgeist.
But right now, the colleges are not training people to get jobs, and they're charging them $70,000, $30,000 a year, creating student loans.
They might get one.
Well, so the whole thing really is falling apart. People that are committed to all this lose their homes, their parents that sign the loans.
You're right.
The whole economy is coming apart because we have falsely believed that you could go to college and that it would advance you economically. It no longer is true.
They can see figures.
On average, it is no longer true.
Right.
But
that's a big structural difference.
You could take a person in 1 year and create the kind of person that 20 million small businesses would hire immediately, even if they are convicts, even if they are addicted, even if they are disadvantaged youths or seniors or misfits or cripples and whatever. We have a need for people and we'll hire whoever has the skill.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I mean, even if the 7-year-old son of that person could do it better than the person they would hire.
Yeah.
That's the thing. The kids can do it. They can just do it like you. You don't have to teach anybody to talk.
But you know what it takes to train somebody? In 4 years at $50,000 a year, it's $200,000. Plus the interest.
Plus interest.
Plus interest, right. Yeah. But the training program that I see that can be done, which I offered to New York City, you can train people to get a job that can pay $1,500 a week.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. $100 an hour for each hour you save me per week. If you can save me 15 hours, I'm willing to pay you a $1,500.
You got to have a pretty good business model.
Not necessarily. There's a lot of people that have that.
Yeah. Okay.
But even if it's only $1,000 a week, or only $800 a week, don't find fault with that. Okay. No. So that training can be done at $2 per hour. Let's take a classroom of 30 people. At $2 an hour, how much money does that classroom generate in 1 hour?
I don't know. I can't do the
30
math.
people times 2 is $60.
Yeah, okay.
You pay the teacher 20, and you have 40 left over. But that classroom is good for 12 hours during the day. That's 500. That's $480 or $500 for the day. And there's 10 classrooms on the floor. That's $5,000 a day. Times 30 days, that's $150,000 a month extra generated by that classroom.
And that's creating people who have skills that are needed by the market in real terms.
And you only have to pay $2,000 a month for that rent. You got $148,000 left.
And you're proposing this for a lot of communities across the country as a way of getting...
their own. They can, and they should. They will all become little Silicon Valleys.
And cyber skills. Is that it?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what you're saying at a practical level, not theoretical.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, and that's being ignored. Why isn't that being jumped into?
Because state licensing prohibits people like me from opening up those schools because they're in competition with the colleges that don't train people for jobs.
Again, it's monopoly.
Yeah,
monopoly of the certification.
We have licensed ourselves out of our standard of living.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, you don't have to. When the biggest job creation category in the turn of the 19th, 20th century was individual farmer. Along came all kinds of things, including right on to the combine, and they all went. They could produce tremendous amount. They didn't need the labor, so they all went to the assembly line in Detroit. So they had to have somebody to turn the nut.
That's right.
Now, you don't think? Do you think that still holds? That there's so many opportunities you're going to be able to get, because the big problem
we've got to go back to that.
Let me say, the big problem that we have with the economy, which is the thing that roils everything, is a lack of demand by the people of the world to be able to purchase and buy what we are capable of producing. Isn't that really the case?
The problem
is that the case? And the only way we have to
China doesn't think it's the case.
I beg your pardon?
China doesn't see a problem. There's plenty of demand there.
No, I'm talking about effective demand. No, they got 300 million people. They got that thing going to Beijing and Shanghai. And they got $1 billion on to $1 a day.
Yeah.
The population of the world doesn't have the money to buy what can be produced, and the work. The distributing of demand to the people, effective buying power, is done through this idea of getting everybody a job. You want to get everybody a job. I don't think that's going to work. Lord Keynes said you're going to have massive technologically induced unemployment. Maybe we have to have something political that will get demand to the people other than through the labor theory of value.
I'm looking ahead. I'm looking ahead for the next 10 or 20 years.
Okay, good. That's a good one.
I can't really deal with it 40 or 50 years from now, or 30.
Well, it's current in my view. But anyway, that's an argument. That's the thing. But that's a good idea.
The college that I would have, a tuition-free equivalency college in a town, what would happen to land values if everyone in town had the right to go to college for free?
A college that is on the side,
that would teach them how to make money.
To make money.
To earn a living, a decent living.
A living, okay.
To have a better standard of living and to do it properly and to do it on a sustainable economic basis.
Well, that would be good, and that's the assumption that we need them.
Yeah.
That is an assumption.
Yeah. But you could create that today.
Why do we need them?
Why do we want people to be able to get a job and earn a living?
Yeah, no, why does having a living, having money, depend upon you doing something? Well, why doesn't it depend on you owning the combine? Well, for instance.
Because
you notice the people that own the assets that are produced, the people that own the assets that are getting doing the production, a combine. They don't even have people driving it.
The more you live in a city, the more difficult it is to have the combines and cooperatives.
Not that, it's the capital assets. They're all owned by a tiny class. Why don't we distribute some capital? Why don't we form capital in a way where ownership goes to the people as a way of distributing demand, rather than this thing about work?
The problem that you envision, the problem that you're discussing is one that sort of gets in the way with a current solution.
Okay, you're right. I'll stop.
And I'm saying that there's a current solution to unemployment.
Okay, good.
I'm not sure that I can address your long-term problem of no employment by anyone. I'm
going to. Okay. We've been through this before. I'm not going to go for it. You're right. So you can get things for people to make money.
I can create prosperity in a town
as a candidate.
And I'm not sure that the prosperity will last more than 20 or 30 years.
Well, that's a long time.
I don't know.
It's moving fast. Everything's moving
so fast. I don't know.
Yeah,
but I know under current conditions we can create prosperity in any town or village of the country. There's 4 things you need to do.
Okay.
Number 1 is to have the town's attorney start enforcing the rights of residents.
Thank you, rather than the obligation.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's what they do now.
And that will be competition to the enforcers who are at the county level.
Thank you. That's good.
The county enforcers.
I know you wanted to do that. You think
the county enforcers will have 10 times the number of people going after them.
Couldn't that enforcement also involve some revenue?
Well, you don't want to have enforcement be tied. That's what they do. That's why you have all the forfeitures now. They look to forfeit your property. They look to take your car, your home. If you have a person smoking a weed in your home, you lose a home.
I'm thinking about if you have an attorney general in each town. I know you were thinking of doing that.
Yeah, town attorney general.
You do that, and they're rerepresenting the people, not the special interest.
That's correct.
And so they enforce the law against an anti-monopolist thing against them. They get a thing. There could be a source of income for the attorney general's office from the bad guys.
When people got money from the town and said they would set up jobs and then they left, you can get clawbacks. You can get money back.
How about that? That you can have the attorney generals of the world getting money from the people for the bad things that they're doing.
How about How about the banks? How about the banks that are wrecking a community? Illegally.
Yeah, sue them and get money.
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
And so there would be an incentive, an entrepreneurial incentive.
So number 1, and that would give free broadband. It would give free dental. You could have a town really helping itself by joining together and trying to overcome the problems.
The legal profession serves the people, the interests of the rich and powerful that they suck up to in order to get money and get in on that fast thing. That's look, they're corrupt, right?
The rich have the money to hire the firms.
Right, so
that
people will kiss the hammer where the power is.
Take control of the apparatus.
That's right.
But the people without money look around for a lawyer when it's too late.
They should have a lawyer in their community. They should have a lawyer in their community that will reflect their interests.
Well,
the people.
Yes, they do have. They have a town lawyer, but they participate in zoning in order to steal money.
Yeah, right.
That's what they do.
Right,
it's a zoning deal.
Yeah, but what you're talking about is a reform thing. I've heard you say the Attorney General is the most powerful office in the world.
It is.
More than this one that you ran for might be the most powerful office in the world.
I came in third. Certainly, that qualifies me to become
That's pretty
president.
good. I'm very proud of you, my brother. Very good. Yeah, but you got this idea, and this idea that you can turn the tables on it, and you can make an incentive.
In a town,
that's a good idea.
In a town of 10,000, you can create a viral condition where everyone is pulling together, because you can educate people door to door.
Right.
You can't do that nationally.
Yeah.
There's not enough time.
Not enough time. Okay.
You can't go to 300,000 people and talk with each one. But in a town of 10,000,
like
with only you can do it.
No,
you have a team of 10 people. One, they knock on every door, and you go inside and you talk with them.
Yeah,
and you take their email address.
Yeah,
and you tell them what the plans are for the town.
Could you do it cyber or something?
No, because you don't have their address yet.
Okay.
You need their email address.
Right, like any market.
Right, you need their email address. So I'm going to have 100% participation. Some people will say, "Get out of here! What are you, crazy?" I'm for the existing condition.
Yes, right.
So then we go to the neighbor and say, "You know that guy next door? He's a idiot. Can you talk with him and let's pull him in?" So you can even do something to work on the recalcitrance.
It's a populist appeal you're talking to, right?
I'm talking. I don't know. I'm trying to do the right thing.
Right. Okay.
When you put labels on it,
I know,
it skews it somehow. We want to put people to work. Big companies have shifted jobs overseas.
They sure have.
We can create self-employment in the town.
Okay.
Is that populist?
Yeah.
To be working? Is that populist?
Well,
since when?
I'm the only person you're talking to.
I know, but it's not populist.
Yeah. No. Okay. I understand.
It's stupid not to be working.
Okay. A case can be made for that, and it's a real thing. And you're running on that ticket. You're running on that platform.
But we don't have that. We don't need the government to create jobs for us. The government only gives money away to people who don't create jobs. They steal the money. We've seen that.
That's getting worse, isn't it?
It's
with the finance capitalists run out of...
So crony capitalism, lay off, don't give any money to create jobs. No money from government for jobs. No money, no regulation. Let the private sector be free to create the jobs. Don't license schooling. That's a First Amendment problem. How can you license what I teach?
Is that charter schools and that, or
well, I would prefer to have anyone open up a school, whether charter or not.
Yeah, and let the
I don't want the licensing of a charter. I want people decide. I want you to open up a school. I want CORE to open up a school. I want the Catholic Church to open up a school. I want the rabbis to open up a school. I want anyone to open up a school. I want free competition and let the people choose.
Okay.
No regulation.
Net neutrality would be good.
Yeah, educational neutrality.
Yeah, right. And that's part of your campaign.
Right, of course. You want to eliminate the licensing of government because licensing is corrupt. They regulate the people who are there by excluding those who would compete with them through what they call licensing.
Okay.
The colleges have lost relevance, but they remain as the source of education because we're not allowed to teach people what they now need to know.
It's like a license to print money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that's in place and in place with the power structure.
So if I set up this tuition-free equivalency college, they're going to learn how to do farming, how to create renewable energy, how to create manufacturing. How to live in a sustainable economy.
That's getting subversive.
And how to do. Why is it? Just you're giving them the information they need to be able to survive. What's wrong with that?
Well, that's going to make them independent of mind.
Well, my God Almighty, they don't have jobs now.
Okay. Yeah.
You want to create. You want to give them the skills to be self-employed. If no one wants to hire them, I just want them to be self-employed.
Yeah. So
the self-employed people will create jobs for others.
Okay, well, that's a good thing.
Well, of course it's good. Why aren't we doing that?
Now, why aren't we doing it? Why is not the world
because
doing
the government doesn't want competition for the monopolies.
So the monopolies, the monopolistic power and the governments are in cahoots? At the top of society?
The government is owned by them.
It's owned by
the monopolies on money, the concentrations of capital own the government. They hire the people to run for office.
Has it always been like that, or no? No. It's when did we make the wrong turn that got us in that?
Well,
and who do we blame
the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve was
1913?
Yeah.
Income tax too.
Yeah.
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 So that's
an interesting thing about the Federal Reserve Act. I read it the other day. It says that any profits of the Federal Reserve are by law to be returned to the U.S. government. Now, remember that the Federal Reserve is paid an interest on all of the debt that has been assigned to the U.S. government.
Okay, yeah.
The U.S. government should not be in debt. It should be issuing money. It shouldn't be creating a debt for itself. It's a government. It should issue money, not as a debt. The government is has the ability to issue money. Why are we incurring a debt and making payments of interest to people that aren't doing anything for it?
I don't know. The issuing of money should be tied, if you're going to avoid inflation, it should be tied to production.
Yeah,
that has real meaning.
That's another story.
Right?
That's another story. But given where we are now,
Yeah.
we should never have had the interest being paid to the Federal Reserve. But the Federal Reserve statute said this, that if with the interest that we're paying you, Federal Reserve, you have any money left over as a profit, you have to return that to us. Now, guess what?
Is that going by the boards now?
No, it's still in law.
Okay.
Guess what?
What?
I think, and I have no way of proving this, except if I'm president, then I'll find out.
If you're president, it'll be a whole different ballgame.
But what I think happened is that you know who owns the Federal Reserve?
Well, there's private banks.
Yeah, the Rothschilds and the German Deutsche Bank and a lot of foreign banks, including Citibank and Chase.
Not a government
They're all foreign banks.
And it's private.
They're foreign banks.
It is private.
Yes.
Yeah, it's private.
The Crown of England.
I don't think people know that.
Yeah, well, no, but it's privately owned. The Federal Reserve is privately owned.
Right.
They're required to take any profits they get and turn it back to the U.S. government.
Okay.
But what I think they did with the $1 trillion of interest they get every year.
That's real money.
Well, don't forget now, there's $15 trillion of debt.
Wait a minute. Eb Dirksen and Charlie
15 trillion.
Alec used to talk about, well, when you get to...
Get this, though, 15 trillion. If interest is at 6%, that's $1 trillion in interest per year. It's probably less than that, but maybe it's 2/3 of $1 trillion or half $1 trillion of interest. Now, where's that money going? I will bet you that the Federal Reserve gives that money to their bank members for free so that they don't have to pay it back to the U.S. government.
Is that through the open window or something? Or how is that done?
I don't know. Well, we gave them $1 trillion in the government just handed them $1 trillion. I'll bet you that they are taking that money and avoiding refunding it to the government by giving it away to the members, and they're saying it's no longer a profit because we don't have it. So that was
done in 1913. That was a longer history. We had a feudal period like that before that, and it's all part of history.
Let me tell you the reason for it.
Okay.
The Rothschilds at one time got most of the gold, and the crown was broke, and nobody would rely upon the crown nobody would lend money to the Crown of England because they were broke. So the Crown of England went to the Rothschilds, who had all the gold, and said, "Can we borrow your credit?" So they said, yes, but we're going to charge you an interest factor. So the Rothschilds had the gold, and the Crown could then borrow money using the Rothschild, but they had to pay the Rothschilds interest. So that's how the Federal Reserve got started in that sense, and they carried it over to America, the same people, and they put us on that even when the gold standard became a sliding downward deal, and with Nixon it finally got eliminated.
72 or so.
So we no longer are on a gold standard.
No, that's right.
And therefore the Federal Reserve or the Rothschilds offer absolutely nothing. And we shouldn't be paying interest at all. We should eliminate the interest that we pay to these people and save $500 billion a year.
Is that something that's generally understood in the political circles?
More so now. More so.
And it's getting as it gets to be very high.
Well, but you know, that's Ron Paul. That's the Ron Paul
that's
people
a Ron Paul
are
thing
basically.
On that. He's a libertarian. You met with him and everything like that?
I haven't. I went down there. I went down there.
The way he sees things? Ron or Rand Paul?
Yeah, well, Randy Paul is different. He's not like his father.
You think of yourself as a libertarian. You always been libertarian?
No, I have ideas. I have ideas, and
that's your problem, young man. You think?
I have solutions, whereas other people would like to think of problems, but they don't have the skills to address the real solution. So because of that, they can think largely,
and all this,
and they don't understand how to put it together.
Right, right.
I think of that as a waste of time.
Yeah, right.
Why bother? Let's do something that can work. So I have figured out what can happen. I can figure out a solution that can be done.
Right.
I offer that.
Right. Well, and that's your platform.
Right.
Now, what's the deal? We only got about 2 or 5 minutes left.
Okay.
So how's it going? What's the process? You have debates the same way the Republicans and the Democrats. Is there any hope of any third-party thing? Nader tried, other people have tried.
Here's what
they got such a lock on political power that you're never going to get elected.
Here's what can happen.
You know.
I'm proposing a debate among the people who aren't participating in the national debates. And to have the voters eliminate them in a series of debates, so that we would wind up with one candidate of the people that isn't put up by the media.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
You know DMT. You know Mark Trump, the guy from Vietnam and everything.
Yeah.
He's got an interesting idea now, because they got this thing in the popular culture, American Idol or Who's Got Talent or something. And what they do is people come out, somebody's got a hip-hop thing or something, they come out and they do their thing for 5 minutes or something, and then they clap and they get an award. Right. He's got the idea that we ought to do, particularly with the, I hope you take heart from the Wall Street occupation thing moving.
I do.
I think it should grow in every community, everywhere in Avenue.
You know what I'm afraid of? I'm afraid that if they start articulating their demands, they will lose the 99% whose demands aren't going to be there.
Thank you. And one of the things they keep saying, they want it horizontal. I think that's wise. They're going out because they get to systems understanding. Anyway, DMT is saying they ought to have a program that would be there. And what you do is you'd have a guy, they would come in and it would just build on that model. And the guy comes, he's got 5 minutes, and he makes a point on something. And then there's a voting process. Okay, that point is good, and this point, and you'd have a thing, economic incentive, but have a thing within the entertainment world or something around the ideas, rather than who can do a dance or something. You know what I mean? I think it might be a good idea because you're getting patterns. And what it is, it's not, you're going in the details of everything gets to be very, very arcane. In any detail on any issue, what they want is a pattern. They get patterns, so they'll get patterns, haiku poetry kind of thing.
Let me finish this.
I think it's a good idea.
Let me finish this off in the sense that if we go into a town and create prosperity, it's because all of the people, the goods and services they're offering will be put into an electronic searchable catalog, like the Sears catalog.
Thank God for
algorithms. And we will market that in the 75-mile radius around the town at low cost, $1 per minute advertising, which doesn't cost anything. It's really for free.
That's right.
And therefore, you'll bring money into the town and you'll create prosperity. The people in that 18,000 square miles are going to demand the same thing. It'll be like Craigslist. Prosperity will cause a grassroots reform of the political process at the bottom.
And that's more or less
what we need.
And that's your campaign status.
That's what we need,
Well, listen, I wish you all the very best, not only because you're a dear friend and a bright fellow and one who thinks and gets things done, and I know that for everything and everything like that, but also because I think the ideas are really good. And we do you sense we need, like this thing, Wall Street, not one little thing on the deck ship of the Titanic. We need a systems approach or something, and this is part of it. And are you encouraged by that? Are you?
I'm encouraged because we have people out there on the line doing something.
Yeah, right.
And I want to harness them in a way that we can go into a
They don't want to be harnessed.
Well, there's some
They don't
people,
want to get into your trip, man.
Well, they
don't want to be harnessed. They want to be open
I want
horizontal.
them to be able to do that. I don't want to harness them. I want to direct them into something. They could.
They don't want to be directed.
Well, then do they want to work?
No. Well, I don't know. Maybe there's some that don't. But anyway, the thing is, it's going, and it's going worldwide.
I'm assuming that.
I'm encouraged by the fact they're not picking up on any one thing, like energy or
let me ask
that.
This.
They're going horizontal.
Are there any of the 99 that are unemployed?
I suppose there must
be. Are they
be.
complaining about unemployment?
Well, people are sub-roasters.
Would you say that some of the people would be willing to create employment if I showed them how?
Yes, I think
then
that would be one. But that would be one of the things that would get on this thing.
That's right.
Anyway, the problem is we run out of time, Carl. We could talk to you for 25 hours without stop, and we've done it on a few occasions. And your pleasure had the perception. Candidate for the President of the United States on the Libertarian Party ticket. And Carl, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
For such a very well-led life that continues. And your pleasure to have had his perception. We invite you to tune in. We're coming back again tomorrow. Sorry we run out of time. But thanks a lot. Keep up the energy, young man. You're just doing great. You're one of the most energetic, involved people I've ever in my life met, and I congratulate you on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for viewing. We'll be coming back again tomorrow. That's it for now. Okay, thanks again, Carl.
Thank you.
Okay. There it is. We got it up on the sign. That's good. It's in blue, red, white, and blue. You got to get. That's really good.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's really good. I understand it better than ever. I think what you're trying to do. And you've got that base. You've been thinking like that all along.
I know. It's
and you're
coming
just
together.
Making it.
You know that.
Can you win? Can you win the nomination?
Oh yeah, I can win the nomination.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be a major voice.
Absolutely. I'll be a third candidate.
You're not
for
a Green Party type. You're a Libertarian type. Yeah.
Well, you know, I have issues that could win.
Yeah.
And the Libertarian Party is the...
No, you think you can win the presidency?
That's difficult.
Oh, no.
That is difficult. I could change the outcome. I could change the outcome. I could change the outcome.
Granted, sir. That's difficult. Yeah. Okay.
I could cause Obama to lose the election.